This is Southern Cross News with Rachel Williams.
Good evening. It's been a horror 24 hours on Tasmanian roads. Last night, a 42-year-old woman was killed when a vehicle collided with hers on a quiet residential street in Hobart. Police are still searching for the occupants who fled the scene before emergency crews arrived. Our reporter Louise Hedger has more.
Just after 9 o'clock last night, a grey Magnet was driving up this street in Newtown where it collided with another car. The impact of the crash was so strong, both cars were forced into the fence behind me. Earlier today, I spoke with two neighbours who were first on the scene.
A humongous bang. I was in the kitchen, my wife was screaming and I ran out the front here and I saw the two cars lined up over there in the debris.
I was sitting in my room when I heard what sounded like an explosion to me and came running out and just saw two cars that had collided and one had just pushed them across the other side of the road.
Nikolai Meinke is a final year medical student and did what he could, but says the driver who was entangled in the wreckage was unresponsive.
Ambulance and Tasmania Fire Service did a wonderful job trying to get her out, which they obviously succeeded approximately about an hour after the crash has occurred.
The 42-year-old woman was rushed to hospital but was pronounced dead soon after. Her passengers remain in stable conditions. Mr Meinke said as soon as he called police, the two male occupants of the Magnet saw him and fled the scene.
He was wearing like a face mask, so he had something covering his face up to here, and then he had a hoodie on and all I could see was his eyes, and he just took off down the street as soon as he saw me.
Police say the men were wearing a black and a red backpack and would have significant head injuries.
If you know somebody who has a head injury, particularly around the forehead area this morning, or a chest injury that seems to be a little bit suspicious, please contact us. We'd really like to speak to you.
Investigations are continuing, but police are urging local residents who may have CCTV cameras around their homes to contact them or who saw a grey Magna sedan prior to the accident. 3 people died in road accidents in Tasmania yesterday, bringing the road toll to 13 compared with 22 this time last year.
Tasmania's Treasurer says the state budget for next financial year may need to be readjusted following Gonski 2.0 passing the Senate. It's still unclear exactly how much extra federal funding the state will get for education, but Peter Gutwin says it will mean more money for schools sooner.
A month after handing down the state budget, Peter Gutwin is already preparing to receive a federal government boost. The extra funds set to flow when Gonski 2.0 comes into practice.
It actually brings forward more federal money and therefore we'll have more money to spend in schools. That's a good outcome for Tasmania and we're working through those details now.
But the opposition and education unions still aren't convinced.
This is a very dark day for public education in Tasmania.
We know that there's a cut to disability funding. We know there's going to be a cut to public schools.
Although when it comes to the math, things don't quite add up.
How can this be a fairer Gonski when we see $85 million ripped out of our schools?
What we do know at this stage is it is still substantially less, some $68 million less than we're expecting under the original deal.
The government again arguing Labor and the union are talking about money that was never budgeted.
What we understand is that it's going to bring forward more money and we're working through the details and it's a good outcome for the state.
Meanwhile, the Tasmanian Economic Regulator has approved a 2% increase in wholesale electricity prices for Tasmanians. That equates to an average $38 increase in power bills per year. The price hike much less than what other states are set to pay from July.
The electricity determinations are for 12 months and as we've said, we're working through a process now to ensure that there are no price shocks into the future.
Since the Liberals have been in office, they've done nothing to bring down the price of production of power. They've done nothing to secure energy in Tasmania.
Monica Dadson, Southern Cross News.
A task force set up to help workers impacted by the impending closure of Murray Goulburn's Edith Creek facility has announced funding for 9 projects, with the majority of money allocated to help the Circular Head region rebuild as a whole. The milk processing plant is set to shut up shop by the end of the year, leaving 120 workers without jobs.
Chairing today's meeting, the Liberal member for Braddon remains full of confidence that the Edith Creek plant will be bought and current workers can retain their employment.
Yes, I am optimistic that someone will take over that facility and the skilled workforce.
But regardless of if or when that happens, today's 9 projects are hoping to help workers. The Circular Head Regional Economic Working Group was recently formed by the state government, and with a budget of $1.5 million, the group's aim is to provide real and practical options for workers.
We don't want this community to be constrained by what currently is. What we're looking for is new opportunity as well as upskilling.
The projects range from $10 grand for a job fair, $30 grand to help businesses become more tech savvy, right up to $200,000 for the region to seek new opportunities both interstate and abroad, to name a few. But has enough been allocated for worker retraining? The local mayor says yes.
There will be real money there for people to retrain. There is other work here, I mean, with dairy industry, with Greenhams and with other projects that's been talked about. I'm sure that there's some real jobs that will happen and people will be able to stay here. So a lot will need to be retrained.
The projects will be gradually rolled out over the coming months, with the remaining $843,000 from the group's budget to be allocated shortly. Jessica Moran, Southern Cross News.
Tasmania's streets are set to become safer, with 18 constables today graduating from the state's police academy. The new recruits mean we now have more than 1,200 officers working across the state, and that number is set to rise further.
From marching in line to soon patrolling our streets, these are our newest Tasmania police officers.
I will faithfully execute the office of police officer in Tasmania.
Among them is 24-year-old Hayley Sinclair, who's been awarded the Ducks of the 31-week training course. She'll now be positioned in Hobart and says she joined the force after studying law.
In all honesty, I think I was drawn to not sitting in an office. That was probably my biggest draw card.
All the recruits will now leave their classroom training days behind, but for some, they're already eager to learn more.
I think the opportunities are endless within the organisation. I have an interest in forensics or maybe going into like cybercrime type things, but there's also CIB and there's part-time roles. There's just so much that it's sort of hard to know this early on where you want to go.
The new officers will be positioned in Launceston, Devonport and Hobart. Another 3 training courses are set to run later this year, the goal to continue boosting our police resources.
Our aim is, as the government has funded us, for 1,233 police officers, and we're on track to make that number. Having extra police officers out in the street, it not only helps keep the community safe, but also helps keep our own police officers safe when they're going to various jobs.
Monika Dadson, Southern Cross News.
A Hobart school is helping pave the way to a better future for disabled children in Kenya. The walkathon at St Virgil's College is one part of the school's fundraising efforts for the Mary Rice Centre.
So the Mary Rice Centre is in the Nairobi slums in Kenya, and it's a small school for people with disabilities, and basically this day sponsors them for the whole year.
It provides the boys with some perspective about how fortunate they are to have the education and the family support that they do.
750 students walked, ran or rode laps around the school to raise $25,000. A Waverley home has been saved from extensive damage this afternoon after crews from Launceston and Ravenswood quickly brought a fire under control. They were called to the Tasman Highway property around 4 o'clock, with the blaze believed to have spread from the fireplace. Investigations are continuing. Meantime, traffic along Elizabeth Street in Hobart was delayed this morning as crews extinguished a kitchen fire at the Taj Palace restaurant in North Hobart, the property only suffering minor internal damage. One of Tasmania's favourite football sons has returned to the state to throw his support behind a very special cause. Richmond great Matthew Richardson was in Hobart to spread the word ahead of the Cancer Council's Tuxedo Junction charity ball.
Well, I think everyone, has been touched in some way by cancer. I mean, everyone knows somebody who's battled with it. So, got asked to be involved a number of years ago at the big fundraiser in Melbourne to help out. And, it's just something that's rolled over each year and it's really enjoyable.
The long-term supporter of Cancer Council Australia, Richardson will be the special guest at the ball being held on August 19 at Rest Point. A Hobart man is one step closer to launching his own whisky-like product after taking out the Tasmanian final of Pitchfest. John Hislop owns Deviant Distillery and won the Australian Post Run event against 4 others in Launceston last night. He received $5,000 for the win to put towards his business and will now contest the national final in August.
Deviant Distillery has a new approach to aging spirits. We make a product that's identical to whisky, but we can't legally call it whisky. And we can also use the same process for things like rums or make a product very similar to a brandy.
John hopes to launch his business later this year. Now a look at business and finance with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has ended in positive territory despite a tumultuous day for the major banks after fresh talk of state government-imposed levies. The ASX 200 index has risen by 9.9 points. And a short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 75.63 US cents and 103.91 euro cents.
Launceston coach Sam Lonergan is all but sure tonight's match against hometown rivals the Bombers won't be a repeat of last time the sides met. The Blues are coming off 3 wins on the trot, but the star midfielder isn't getting ahead of himself just yet.
Taking a philosophical approach to the Blues' round 3 85-point thumping at the hands of North Launceston.
Once we face and recognise and accept that internal fear, we can actually start to move forward. So I'll certainly speak about that and making sure the players can move forward and not to worry about that fear of failure.
Now sitting at 3rd on the ladder, Launceston are a different side altogether.
I think they've won 3 in a row now, so yeah, they're playing some really good footy and it's going to be a really tough battle, that's for sure, absolutely.
A win at UTAS Stadium tonight would see the Blues well and truly enter into the premiership debate, but the former Essendon player is treading carefully.
If we keep going down the way we are right now, I'm sure we'll play finals. However, if fatigue and things start to hit into a group that's underdeveloped from a physical point of view, then we may start to dip at the end of the year.
The Bombers' list stays unchanged following the side's 66-point win over the D's, as will their simple but increasingly effective style of play.
You can have all the setups and the best plans in the world, but if you don't win the footy out the middle, then it's pointless, really.
Devonport boasts the home ground advantage this time around in Saturday's Coastal Derby, but they'll be without gun Brad Simmons after this incident during the side's clash against Glenorchy. And despite the Pies still sitting winless on the bottom of the ladder, coach Mitch Thorpe says the young group's confidence is building.
I think if we reflect on last week's game against Glenorchy, earlier in the year we got beaten by 150 points and we lost last week by 36 and we're right in the game against arguably one of the better teams in the comps.
Tom Cooper, Southern Cross News.
It's crunch time for the Hobart Zebras and Olympia Warriors tonight as they square off under the lights of KG5. The title hopes of early season favourites the Zebras are now all but out of reach, but the Warriors may still be a chance providing they don't put a foot wrong from here on out.
Another ball. A spectacular fall from grace. Once considered a big title chance, the Hobart Zebras are now 10 points off the pace.
I think 10 points at this stage of the season, yeah, we're definitely out. But there's still a lot to play for, even like for spots for next year, young players coming through. The South Hobart game is probably the turning point, being 2-0 up and losing 3-2, then Sav never to be seen again after the game. So, but that's just part of football, really.
The side heads into tonight's grudge match without 4 key players. Thankfully for them, the Warriors are in exactly the same position.
Gives others opportunities, and at a club like Olympia, we've got some good young players coming through and, it's going to give them an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have got.
Unlike the Zebras, the Warriors could still potentially be in the mix, but a loss under the lights of KG5 could see them fall 9 points behind ladder leaders Devonport, virtually shattering any hopes of a title shot.
No, it's not out of reach. We've still got to play them. Obviously, play South and Zebras and stuff. So there can be turns in this, definitely.
The match kicks off at 8 p.m. Meanwhile, the Launceston Tornadoes have welcomed in latest import, Miliakire Koyamenavure. It's hoped the Fijian national under-20 captain can provide some serious firepower for the Tawns as they head into the business end of the season.
Played basketball in America in college for 4 years, and then I moved back home before the coach got in touch with me, and that's how I ended up here.
Pacific Islands is normally pretty physical, so hopefully she adds that to us.
But she, just in the little bit that I've seen already, she knows basketball. She can play. She can read her games.
Kuya Manavure plays her first match for the Tawns when they take on Albury Wodonga at home tomorrow night. Tom Cooper, Southern Cross News.
More than 300 students from across the south of the state have turned out to compete at the Moona Sports Centre for the Volleyball Schools Cup. Open to both public and independent schools, around 30 teams over multiple age groups battled it out over the course of the day. The annual event is hosted by Volleyball Tasmania. Tasmanian parasailor Matt Bugg has moved to 4th position at the Para World Sailing Championships. Bugg battled grey skies and wind gusts of up to 25 knots during day 3 of sailing in Germany. 7 races remain in the series. There are more than 80 competitors from 39 countries at the championships.
Good evening on what, of course, is International Take Your Dog to Work Day. And this is Charlie Murphy, who doesn't like the wet or the wind. Do you, girlie? You don't like it, do you? You're stinky. Hobart, 15 degrees today. Launceston, 13. Burnie and Devonport, a top of 14 degrees. 16 was the high today at a few centres, wasn't it, Charlie? Including Friendly Beaches, Campania and Dunelly, with the best rainfall being around 12 millimetres at Warra, 8 millimetres at Mount Reid. St Helens today, along with Grove and King Island, 15 degrees. I didn't realise dogs were so heavy. Flinders Island, Low Head, Wynyard and Strawn, 13 degrees at Scottsdale, Lyawini, a high of 6 degrees. Now, there are 2 bands of cloud moving over our region, with open cellular cloud to the southwest in a cold pool of air, and more cloud is spiralling around a weakening low near Western Australia. Now, there's the cloud over the state today, with the second build-up this afternoon as well. Tomorrow, the cold front, that moves over the Tasman Sea with a high pressure zone sitting over most of the mainland. The next cold front is well to the west and starts its inevitable journey our way. West to south-westerlies tomorrow at 20 to 25 knots, but stronger north-west to south-westerlies over the south and east. Swells at 7 metres in western and southern waters. Strong wind warning for all coastal waters apart from the far northwest coast. A small craft wind alert for the lakes. A bushwalkers alert for the western and central plateau with snow down to 400 metres. Saturday in Hobart, a shower or 2, 10 degrees, 7 for Maydena, 8 degrees after -2 for Oatlands. Launceston, a morning frost, a top of 11, 11 also for Devonport. Lyawini, a snow shower, -4 to a top of 3. Burnie, a shower or 2 and 11, 10 degrees for Strawn, a shower for Marrawar and 11 degrees, while for St Helens tomorrow, partly cloudy, 11, 11 the top for Swansea, Orford a morning shower and 10 degrees. On Sunday, showers extending across the state before contracting to the west and south. Isn't that right, Charlie? Fine on Monday, apart from a shower over the west and far south, and on Tuesday, showers in the west and northwest, but mainly fine elsewhere. Sunny in Perth, showers in Adelaide and Melbourne, partly cloudy in Sydney tomorrow, a top there of 18 degrees, but sunny in Brisbane, Darwin and Alice Springs. Few showers at the moment in Hobart, it's 8 degrees, Launceston mostly cloudy and 10, a bit clear air over Devonport at the moment and 10 degrees. And as we know, it's a great idea, take your dog to work day. And as we know also, that dogs are good and cats are evil. And Charlie knows that too, don't you, Charlie? Where's that cat? Where's the cat? Where's the pussycat? Back to you, Rach.
Thanks, Murph and Charlie. You're a superstar. Well, that's a lovely way to finish Southern Cross News for now. I'll be back later with updates. From all of us here, have a great evening. Good night.